This is a bit of a flashback, but do you remember around this time last year when Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, said that he wanted to check that his grandmother, the Queen, was protected? Can you remember how the right-wing snowflakes of England lost their minds and were up in arms about this? Apparently this was such an outrageous comment, and these snowflakes wanted to know who the hell could he have been talking about. They were clutching their invisible pearls, demanding to know, who is it?
Who is it? It is a friend of mine. Is it my brother?
Sorry, I couldn't help that. Anyway. Hello everybody and welcome to Duchess Royale, where I share my opinions and receipts on all things really interesting, but with a focus on major talking points. Some housekeeping first though. Make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and also hit that notification bell so that you know when the next video is out. So let's just dive in. In this video, I want to talk about the supposed controversial statement that Prince Harry made in his interview for NBC at his Invictus Games 2022 around this time last year. Now this interview was filmed in Europe, the Netherlands to be precise, and it was supposed to put a spotlight on Invictus and how these amazing life-changing games have helped wounded veterans who have suffered either physical or mental injuries. Now, if you were an American in America or just a non-Brit watching somewhere outside the UK, it probably did just that. However, back on UK soil, the British right-wing royalist media had already labelled the interview a bombshell tell-all, where they asserted that Harry would be, in quotes, trashing his family once again. Now, if you're not emotionally incontinent like British royalists have become over anything Harry and Meghan say and do, then this interview would have been a nice, informative watch which gave you an insight into Invictus and also, as an aside, an update on developments in Harry's life, including his recent covert visit to the Queen that he made around that time. That's the Queen of England, his gram. It's easy to forget, and some may not even know, that Harry had a great relationship with the Queen, and I suspect that this is why Harry's comments about her were made into such a big deal, because I guess Prince Harry was effectively messing with the narrative that the media has desperately tried so hard to build of him and the Queen being at odds with one another. Now, before we take a look at who are those failed protector suspects that Prince Harry could possibly have been talking about, I think it's important to have a little understanding of their relationship. This is the relationship that Harry had with the now late Queen, and the one that the media want you to think that he had. Because according to the British media, everything that Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan did was
a slap in the face of the Queen.
So it really hurt their narrative when her grandson and his wife, Duchess Meghan, flew in for a secret visit to see the Queen days before the Invictus Games were due to start in the Netherlands. This was unbeknown to the press, and they absolutely hated not being in the know beforehand, and therefore on site to get those pictures of them arriving and leaving to match them with sensational headlines.
A bit of a surprise and a rare family reunion.
Yeah, a surprise indeed, Tom, and proof that Meghan and Harry can get into and out of Windsor without a camera seeing them. And I know that because I was in Windsor today with a camera, and as you can see, I'm now at home.
And of course, there would be some malicious made-up story from anonymous sources, of course, about what went on in the visit, and of course, just somehow to make Harry and Meghan look bad, whilst also pocketing them a sweet sum in the clickbait, of course. But yes, it seems that this was a visit which the Queen kept a secret from everyone else. Author Robert Hardman, who has been writing books on the Queen for over 20 years, shared his thoughts on the Queen's relationship with Harry when asked on one of those panel shows that are supposed to be dedicated to talking about the royal family, but which somehow always end up being mostly about Harry and Meghan bashing. Anyway, this show was recorded before Harry's NBC interview and revelations from that interview.
What have you learned about her relationship with Prince Harry and Meghan?
Well, I think the relationship with Harry is still very strong. There is a real, there's a fondness, a bond there. He's devoted to her. And she's very good at compartmentalising, talking to people who know her very well. There's sort of family and there's business. So the whole issue of them leaving the royal family, their SussexRoyal.com website, all that kind of thing, their patronages, that's business. That gets dealt with separately. But in terms of grandmother-grandson relationship, it's still very strong.
I'm sure for most royalists this is not what they wanted to hear, but if we apply logic and focus on what Harry has said,
use your common sense,
and also focus on the actions of the Queen at the time, then it doesn't match the Queen, have been repeatedly slapped in the face by my grandson nonsense. Now, I don't pretend to understand the ins and outs of the relationship between Prince Harry and the Queen at the time. It seemed to be more complex than the average ordinary grandson and grandmother relationship, but I think that's probably the case with most of her family relationships. And as Robert Hardman said, there's the family relationship and the business relationship. I guess the Queen had two split personalities. The Queen, supposed to prioritise the country and put aside everything else for that duty, and then the mother and the grandmother behind closed doors. Now, despite the media's attempts to put out a narrative of disharmony, what is clear is that both Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan loved and respected the Queen, and it seems like the feeling was mutual. You see, in their quest to turn the public against the Sussexes, the British media ignore these facts and they erase them from the narrative, or they try to do that, even when this means that when you think it through, the tabloid version of events just doesn't make sense. For example, Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan literally went into stealth mode and did a Mission Impossible by sneaking into the UK that Maundy Thursday to see and spend time with the Queen. And the Queen kept this a secret from everybody. And that is no small feat. Yet the British media were not having it, and they still tried to sow their seeds of discord as per usual.
Being with her, it was great. It was just so nice to see her. She's on great form. She's always got a great sense of humour with me, and I'm just making sure that she's, protected and got the right people around.
Hoes mad, hoes mad, hoes mad, hoes mad, hoes mad.
Yep, that's what he said that had the UK Karens and Kevins collectively losing their minds, generating headlines like these, and being a topic of discussion on most of the UK morning shows.
That was a little bomb planted. He knows it, everyone knows it.
Plus the highly controversial thing he said about, I want to make sure that the Queen is protected and surrounded by the right people, which people have taken huge exception to.
And he's talking about protecting the Queen, talking about a private visit with the Queen. Well, it wasn't private, just like his life isn't private.
Yeah, Prince Harry saying he wanted to make sure that his grandmother was surrounded by the right people and being protected. Well, of course, the unsaid criticism there is that she's surrounded by the wrong people and that she's not being protected. So not being protected by Charles and William, not being protected by the courtiers and the firm from Buckingham Palace behind me, or even not being properly looked after by her own medical staff. Of course, any of those implications would be an insult, and I think has been taken as such.
Oh, Jesus, take the wheel. Again, the faux outrage goes back to the fact that Prince Harry, with his concern, was messing with the media narrative. I mean, how dare a grandson show that he deeply loved and had a great relationship with his grandma and had her best interests at heart? Especially as he happened to live in a different country and couldn't check up on her a lot or be hands-on or on the ground to ensure that she was okay on a daily basis. His comment is something that really should have been forgotten as quick as it was said, but as reported by the media, some of the royal family took it as shots fired. And in my opinion, the reaction to this comment says more about the people up in arms about it than it does about Prince Harry. One doth protest too much, I think, a little bit too defensive, but it was all a bit strange. On this issue of his concerns, I would say that Prince Harry had every right to be concerned about his then aging grandma. In an article by the Telegraph written before Harry's NBC interview, the writer thought so too. The headline says it all. That is, with all eyes on the rest of the royal family, who is looking after the Queen? His opener to the article said, somehow Her Majesty appears to have been left without the care and attention to detail that has been until now a hallmark of her reign. Now he goes on to write that the Queen is no longer surrounded by family that much and is instead relying mostly on her employees and her courtiers. He noted that she was much more frail and less care has been taken into the production of video communication messages where she featured. One thing was for sure in that less care was taken on her appearance. So for her 96th birthday, she was pictured here with her coat buttoned up incorrectly, and as you can see from the picture, unexplained bruises on her legs. Now, someone on social media did mention the words elder abuse, and I immediately thought, whoa, that's just a bit too much. We're reading too much into this. But actually, I looked it up, and elder abuse is something not to dismiss straight away anyway. Typically, elder abuse comes in various forms, ranging from neglect to physical, emotional and financial abuse. Could this be why Harry dropped those lines? Is this what he meant when he said that he wanted to ensure that she was being protected and that she had the right people around her? That is, people that can protect her from being treated in a way that she's being manipulated or exploited, as she might then have been quite vulnerable and much more dependent on other people than she had been before.
How are you?
Well, as you can see, I can't move.
Protection from who, though? Who specifically could he have been talking about? Senior aides, courtiers, or even members of his family? Let's take a look at the potential suspects. Suspect 1. Well, this is where I want to go back to the Oprah Winfrey interview, because actually, Harry might have dropped a hint here. So this was way back in March 2021, where he expressed that he didn't believe that his grandmother had the best advisors.
After my grandmother had said, the moment you land, come up to...
We asked if we could go up to see her.
Come up to Sandringham. The moment we landed in the UK, I got a message from my private secretary, Fiona at the time, cutting and pasting a message from the Queen's private secretary, basically saying, please pass on to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex that he cannot come to Norfolk. The Queen is busy. She's busy all week.
After she just invited you?
Yeah. Just invited me. The Queen's busy. She's busy all week. Do not come up here. No, when you're head of the firm, there is people around you that give you advice.
Okay.
And what has also made me really sad is some of that advice has been really bad.
Edward Young was the Queen's private secretary and most likely one of the people responsible for stopping Harry from seeing his grandmother. Now, when I looked up elder abuse, keeping an elder from seeing their loved one was a very typical characteristic that falls into this. Now, I'm just saying, but it does beg the question, why would her chief advisor, Edward Young, go out of his way to stop the Queen seeing her very own grandson? A grandson that he knew and that we know now she was very fond of. Previously, I had thought that it wouldn't surprise me if he was on the RAVEC committee, which stands for Royal and VIP Executive Committee. Now, this is the committee that determines whether a member of the royal family should receive security. As you guys probably know, Prince Harry's safety was compromised when he visited the UK for the unveiling of a new statue of his mother in July 2020. There was some kind of car chase, and he now feels that rather than have his private American unarmed security, that he needs British armed royal protection for him and his wife and his children in the UK. Now, RAVEC is comprised of representatives from the Metropolitan Police, the Home Office and Buckingham Palace. Yes, the representatives from Buckingham Palace would have been senior aides who worked closely with the Queen. And lo and behold, it turned out, or what do you know? Edward Young was on the RAVEC committee. So there's this article here from the BBC which refers to the tensions that Prince Harry had over security. with regards to his court case, and his lawyers were challenging the decision. And in this article, it reported that challenging the decision, Prince Harry's lawyer said that Prince Harry had not been aware that Sir Edward Young, the Queen's private secretary, had played a role in the decision. Later on in the article, it says that they questioned whether it was appropriate for Sir Edward or other members of the royal household to sit on the committee when Prince Harry had been told that the committee was independent. So, all very suspect. Now, without going into details over the row over security, which, by the way, I do think Harry rightly deserves. This is by virtue of him being a prince, fifth in line to the throne, being a target and having already had threats on his life uncovered, and having the British press incite even more hate against him. It would be the people close to the Queen that would determine that. So far, together with the Home Office, Prince Harry has found the security offered to him woefully unsatisfactory. I mean, it seems very limited and very conditional too, practically non-existent. But the point is that those working closely with and apparently on behalf of the Queen when she was alive appeared not only to have sought to block his access to her, but were blocking him from getting good security, which would have indirectly prevented him from seeing her in the UK and also from her seeing her great-grandchildren from him. Yet the British media were always banging on that she longed to see her great-grandchildren. Luckily, she got her wish when Prince Harry and Meghan flew in for the Queen's Jubilee celebration, and there's a lovely passage in Harry's memoir, Spare, where he recounts the Queen meeting with her namesake, Princess Lilibet Diana, and of course with Prince Archie again. Now, a few years ago, when Ravek was reviewing Prince Andrew's royal protection, they had decided it wasn't a need for him. And to be fair, it most likely wasn't. Andrew is not a senior working royal or anywhere near the top in the line of succession. And unlike Prince Harry, he does not have people that were literally caught plotting against his life who were put behind bars and are behind bars as we speak. But despite this, the Queen did step in for Andrew when it seemed that it was unlikely that he would get the protection that she wanted him to get. She did this when it seemed unlikely that his protection would continue. Now, I think it's reasonable to think that since she did have a good relationship with Prince Harry too, and he had a stronger case for the need of protection, that she might have also felt the same, that he should have been granted good security too. Maybe her voice was being suppressed on this occasion by those around her following their own agendas, fellow and dominating family members, and also the men in grey suits such as Edward Young and other men like him in the institution. So the thing about elder abuse keeps popping up in my mind. Whatever way the papers want to spin Harry's security row, it didn't make the Queen look good. And it certainly doesn't make Prince, or now King Charles, look good, bearing in mind that he probably has always had a say. Suspect 2, random courtier. From Harry's own mouth, he's always kind of humanised the Queen, and he portrays her more as a loving grandmother than a cold, stoic monarch. In the British media, we have no clue what we're doing handbook of how to take down Harry and Meghan. They have written plenty an article based on information given to them by, in quotes, palace sources, the Courtiers, who in trying to make Harry and Meghan look bad, have also portrayed the Queen in a bad light, thus making her collateral damage. Think about it. The Queen, as the head of the family, slapped an unproven bullying allegation on Meghan out of the blue, and just before Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan's Oprah Winfrey interview. And now that the investigation has been concluded, they will not release the results to the public. It looked like a malicious act against the couple that the Queen was, on the one hand, believed to be very fond of. And no doubt she was advised to do this, perhaps by the same courtiers that tried to block them from seeing her. What about the reported reaction of the Queen to Prince Harry naming his daughter Lilibet as a tribute to her, since it was her nickname as a little girl. A big, massive deal was made about this. Supposedly, a courtier advised the press that this enraged the Queen to the point that it was said that she was planning to take legal action against Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan, even though Harry and Meghan's account is that they had asked the Queen if they could bless their daughter with this name. But according to the Courtiers, they had taken this precious name without permission. Now imagine having to ask a family member for permission to name your daughter after them because you love them and they love you, and this being an issue. But lo and behold, as the papers would have you believe through the Courtiers, this was a cardinal sin that they'd done, naming their baby after her, and apparently would propel the Queen to think about doing away with the old motto, never complain, never explain. Like, really? I don't know any grandmother who would be that enraged that their granddaughter was being named after them. I mean, the optics of fighting a week-old innocent baby because of a name is not a good look. But this is what the press ran with based on the Courtiers' reports, and they're speaking on behalf of the Queen. There was no dispute from Buckingham Palace to say that this was incorrect. Of course, when your only agenda is to make Harry and Meghan look bad, it may have been easy for Courtiers to lose sight of how bad it portrayed the Queen to be. But whatever the Queen's Courtiers and Edward Young, her private secretary, were up to, Prince Harry, unlike mere observers, may have had a reason to be concerned because obviously he knew the real situation. Both him and Meghan knew the truth about it, and they knew how the Queen felt based on their conversations with her. After all, both Harry and Meghan no longer had to adhere to the firm's protocols when it came to contacting the Queen, and as a result, they said that they actually spoke to her more often than when they were in the institution. I'm sure that the Queen, who was able to make plans for them to visit without anyone knowing, would have also had no problems letting Harry and Meghan know that she was unhappy with their daughter's name, rather than resorting to taking legal action against them. Legal action which of course didn't materialise because the whole story was a lie anyway. Suspect 3. Angela Kelly. Angela Kelly was the Queen's dresser, personal assistant and her closest confidant, apparently. Now she featured heavily in the lie that was called Tiaragate, where Duchess Meghan was accused of demanding to wear the most expensive tiara for her wedding and was said to have been given a dressing down by the Queen herself. Now I'm calling it a lie because in recent times new information has come to light inadvertently in Duchess Meghan's court case against the Daily Fail, which suggests that this story could not be true, and we have since heard new accounts with different scenarios to try and implicate Duchess Meghan some other way in what seem from emails to have been actually quite harmonious scenario where the Queen happily gave Duchess Meghan her blessing to wear a simple tiara of her own choice.
And when I spoke to people that were involved in this process, it was nothing but a lovely moment for the Queen, Meghan and Harry, who was present, who happily went with one of the tiaras that was on display. It was her first choice. She would have gone with anything that was there because how often do you get to pick tiaras? Now, that's what I know of the story. What I'll leave you to figure out is that why would someone have an issue with Meghan? And if they did, what might they do to put her in her place? So I can't say that the tiara story that ended up in the pages of the press was fake, because whoever reported that would have got that from legitimate sources working within the palace. But was their agenda real? Was what they were sharing real?
Angela Kelly features in this story as she had access to the tiara, and it has been reported that in a number of ways and in full Karen mode, she made it difficult for Duchess Meghan to get access to the tiara in time for certain wedding fittings. According to Omid Scobie, royal reporter and author of Finding Freedom, this was Angela Kelly's way of putting Duchess Meghan in her place. It's only Prince Harry calling the Queen to sort this out that Angela eventually fixed up and did what she was supposed to do. Since the release of Prince Harry's memoir in January 2023, not only did he report that there was no dispute or diva antics from Duchess Meghan against the Queen over the tiara, and that the Queen actually invited Meghan to choose a selection of hers, but he revealed that the beef was indeed with Angela Kelly.
Granny said to Meg quite tenderly, "Tiaras suit you." Meg melted. "Thank you, ma'am." One of the 5, however, stood out. Everyone agreed it was beautiful, seemingly made for Meg. Granny said it would be placed in a safe directly, and she looked forward to seeing it on Meg's head come the big day. We left the palace feeling awed and loved and grateful.
And when it came to waiting for the tiara,
a week later, we contacted Angela and asked her to please send us the chosen tiara so we could practice putting it on. We'd need at least one dress rehearsal. For some reason, however, Angela didn't respond to any of our messages. We kept trying. Time was running out. Inexplicably, she replied, "Can't be done." She was being obstructive, obviously, but for what reason? We couldn't even hazard a guess. I considered going to Granny, but that would probably mean sparking an all-out confrontation. Also, to my mind, Angela was a troublemaker, and I didn't need her as an enemy. Above all, she was still in possession of that tiara, so he'd gone back. Again, we phoned Angela. Again, nothing. Finally, Angela appeared out of thin air at Kensington Palace. I met her in the audience room. And then she handed me the tiara. I thanked her, though I added that it would have made our lives so much easier to have had it sooner. Her eyes were fire. She started having a go at me. She fixed me with a look that made me shiver. I could read in her face a clear warning. This isn't over.
So from this, Prince Harry would already be side-eyeing this aide. Now, even though Angela Kelly was bad-minded to Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan, she may have been fantastic to the Queen, but what is clear is that she had no issue making life difficult for the monarch's grandson and his wife-to-be, and probably leaking false stories to the media. I don't have to have known the Queen personally to guess that this is probably not what she would have wanted. That's unless we're to believe that she really is this heartless old woman that she's inadvertently painted out to be by the British press. Angela has also, in the time that the Queen was around, benefited from her position of being close to her in a different way. She has written several books about the Queen. In a book that she wrote around the time of the Jubilee, she talked about her life in lockdown with the monarch, and she also alluded to the Queen being rude to her when she would do her hair. Angela says that this was to the point of needing a stiff gin and tonic. I would never have imagined the sheer fact that Prince Harry, mentioning in a positive way that him and Duchess Meghan met the Queen for tea and she tells him things that she tells no others, would be deemed so grossly inappropriate. Like he was revealing deep, dark secrets from their private conversation, even though he didn't actually comment on the content of what they discussed.
That's sort of fine, but he was asked about the Queen. The most sensible thing for him to do would say, look, that was a private meeting, you know. Yeah. He didn't. He then went on about, we talked about how I want to protect her. Really? From 5,500 miles away? Protect her from what? From whom?
For me, even if he was asked those questions, he could just say, I was really pleased to see my grandmother, but our conversation remains private. Yeah. And he could absolutely have had that conversation with her about, are you being protected, etc. It could have stayed private.
Surely, if Prince Harry's comments are a problem for these women and he's actually family, then unless there is a major, major double standard, Angela's comments should greatly incense them too. But actually, the tone of Angela Kelly's comments have to a muted degree at least raised eyebrows. Really, it's Angela's comments that yet again definitely are not a good look for the monarch and somehow feels like exploitation and a breach of privacy. Suspect 4, Prince Andrew. Could Harry's bombshell comment have been directed at Prince Andrew? The fallout from Andrew walking the Queen down the aisle of the church of the memorial service of Prince Philip in March 22 led to a lot of criticism from the public. In doing this, the Queen seemingly put the alleged pedo prince up front and centre, and again it was just not a good look when people expected that he should be keeping a low profile, particularly given the shame of him settling for millions of pounds rather than fighting his accuser's legal case that he partook in the sexual abuse of trafficked minors at the time. That was Virginia Guthrie, and many people assuming that he was actually guilty, even though he denied it. Let's not forget that it's also believed that the Queen helped him pay off this £1 million settlement. So instead of Andrew trying to fall back, he tried to use the opportunity to rehabilitate his reputation. This failed spectacularly and had the rare effect of a backlash against the Queen.
You know, Prince Andrew was right there, the cameras were on him, then he was sitting in the front row. I mean, we were talking last week about this series of PR disasters for the royal family, and I'm sorry to say, I think this is an absolutely another huge one that they've got to tackle.
But that would have been the Queen's decision.
The Queen was completely wrong to allow that to happen. And yes, even though Prince Charles and Prince William rightly objected to it, obviously, I think more should have been done.
But she has a very public role, and she was parading. Look, it wasn't parking offences he paid to settle. This was a horrible, horrible case.
You know, I can't see it personally.
This was poor. Look, this was poor judgment. There's no question.
Suspect 5. So who else is in the frame? Now I'm going for the then heir apparent Prince Charles, now known obviously as King Charles III. Now, last year the Queen was getting on in age, and what is as sure as day is that she was not as mobile as she used to have been, and her health had been a source of concern. Naturally, Prince Charles, as he was then known, was probably thinking about his ascension to the throne being nigh. And on the 6th of February 22, which marked the Queen's 70th year on the throne, she shared in a formal, headed papered statement that it would be her sincere wish that on Charles's ascension to the throne, Camilla is titled Queen Consort instead of Princess Consort, as it was believed to have been agreed years ago. Now, it's not a secret that for many, many years, the Queen was not a fan of Camilla. This is the woman that had a very public affair with her son while he was married to the very beloved Princess Diana. At the time, 90% of the public were furious with the idea of her being even Princess Consort, let alone Queen Consort, because it wouldn't look good that the former concubine of Prince Charles was now Queen. I mean, that takes the saying that you can't take a side piece and turn her into a housewife to a whole new level. But essentially, they would be showing that you could, and that you could become Queen. After years of being unmovable on this matter, the sudden change in the Queen wanting Camilla to be the Queen Consort, or even just the fact of giving her blessing to it, is very suspect. Again, it raised eyebrows, and to mention this on the anniversary of her ascension to the throne only made this news even more strange, because actually it put the attention on the idea of Camilla as Queen Consort to be, and ended up overshadowing the actual anniversary day of the Queen. This raised a few eyebrows, but what raised even more eyebrows was the fact that a few weeks later we were told that Charles, instead of the Queen, would be paying the bulk of Prince Andrew's sexual assault case settlement to the tune of 12 million plus. Bearing in mind that 12 million is the figure that the royal PR team tell us is the estimated settlement fee, but it's probably much more. But Charles is not close to Andrew at all. This got social media talking. Owen Jones, who is a political commentator, tweeted about Prince Andrew's settlement asking who paid for this, and a response from a Twitter handle, Ken Stonger, said, hearing from my sources that Prince Charles threatened to veto this unless he got confirmation that Camilla would be Queen. There was also some other people saying the same thing. Maddie Lopez said, is there any connection between Prince Andrew's settlement and Prince Charles's coronation? I know they're saying they're not, but... And then also you got Scotland Ruth, who said, oh God, no. What do you think of the theory that Charles is funding the settlement and Andrew's defence? As the theory goes, Andrew is the Queen's favourite son, and as a repayment to Charles for this huge favour, Camilla will be known as Queen's consort, ooh la la. So yeah, that's a lot of speculation on social media. And whilst Charles may not be close to Andrew, it seems he is close to the Cash for Honour scandal, where his private secretary Michael Fawcett tried to help a Saudi billionaire get a knighthood and UK citizenship. Now, the police were said to be investigating this, but I doubt that that's really happening anymore, and certainly not since Charles is now king. But if it was the case that Michael Fawcett did do something, and also that Prince Charles is aware of this and was influenced by Michael, then Prince Harry had a right to be concerned about the people that are in advisory roles in the royal family. However, maybe Prince Charles's ex-aide has rubbed off on him, and this time it's him who is buying the honours instead of selling them. By that I mean agreeing to pay the lion's share of Andrew's bills instead of his mum in exchange for the title of Queen Consort for Camilla with his mother's blessing, just like those folks on social media have implied. But also, it isn't just social media. As you can see here from this article, Radar Online also reported this theory, which came from the recent biography on Charles. So this article is from November 2022, which is after the Queen's death, and therefore at a point whereby Charles had now become the king. So here in their headline it says, she was desperate. King Charles III pressured his dying mother into naming Camilla the next queen. So just to read on, the article opens with, heartless King Charles III pressured his dying mother. The article goes on to refer to Prince Andrew's difficulties over finding the settlement money and said that, so his brother, that's Prince Charles or King Charles, capitalised on the situation, spies said. In quotes it says, I'm told Charles knew Her Majesty was desperate to get Andrew off the hook at any cost, and he named his price to do it, confided the source. It goes on to say that the future king proposed a simple quid pro quo. He wouldn't oppose the multi-million-dollar settlement if Camilla was named queen. And that's author Chris Anderson, who exposed the details of the bombshell deal in his new book, The King, The Life of Charles III. Now, why would he feel the need to do this? Well, there is no doubt that with his mother gone, that at Charles and Camilla's coronation, that a public blessing of Camilla by the Queen would make it just that bit easier for them and in their reign thereafter. The Queen's endorsement might make critics hold back complaints on Camilla's title and perhaps encourage more people that wouldn't have accepted and supported her in that role to do so. This is just speculation, but I think it's food for thought. And if there is something to this, then it raises the ugly head of that term elder abuse, whereby in her older age, her adult sons were getting her to do things that she may not have done before, which served their agenda but seem questionable on her or just are out of sync with her usual approach on such matters. So again, Prince Harry, who seems to love the idea of a real genuine family acting like a family and not institutional robots trying to make deals for themselves from and against other family members, well, he may have felt that this was behaviour that the Queen should have been protected from. This leads us nicely to the very last suspect that I put forward. Suspect 6. This is Prince William and Kate Middleton jointly. Now, there's actually a lot to say about their alleged nefarious behind-the-scenes moves against Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan in the last 5 years, and certainly that will be covered in a separate video. But with regards to this matter of using the Queen to do things that she may have been uncomfortable with, and that reflected badly on her just in order to meet their own agenda, the Welleses may well be included in the list of family members that the Queen needed to have been protected from in this regard. Now, if you cast your mind back to earlier in the video, I mentioned about Buckingham Palace as the Queen's residence slapping a bullying allegation against Meghan just days before her Oprah Winfrey interview with Prince Harry. In light of the Queen's good relationship with the Sussexes, this did seem quite strange and actually also quite heartless. It came across quite two-faced, especially as Harry and Meghan spoke so affectionately of her in that very interview, and as stated earlier, the Queen likes them back, and that's why she actually bent over backwards to meet them secretly for that informal Easter visit. Well, it turns out that the bullying allegations had been cooked up at Kensington Palace, which is the residence of Prince William and Kate Middleton, and also it previously was the joint workplace that the Sussexes were at before they decided to leave and live in Frogmore Cottage instead. I suppose because it was such a toxic environment for them at Kensington Palace. Now, the Welleses' employee, that's Jason North, had led the way with the allegations, and incidentally, perhaps as if to reward him, they later gave him a promotion, making him the CEO of the Royal Foundation. Anyway, it's believed that knowing that they had done all sorts of underhand things to smear their brother and sister-in-law, Prince William and Kate Middleton therefore had the fear of God in them when they heard that Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan were doing this interview. And I guess they expected that the Sussexes were going for payback and would call them out and spill a trailer load of beans on them in this interview. So it seems that they decided to rather impulsively publicly make these bullying allegations against Duchess Meghan for the world to hear in an attempt to get ahead of their interview, to smear them further and to undermine and discredit anything that they said about them in the interview. Honestly, in the end, I think that they probably lived to regret this preemptive attack because it caused a lot of problems in the royal family. It outed them as being kind of malicious and conniving. And after hearing the interview, in hindsight, it was probably an overreaction. Perhaps this is what happens when you judge people by your own standards and morals. But actually, Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan barely spoke in detail on them in the interview. Meghan did correct the hit piece put out against her by one of Kate's Royal Rota reporters with an established reputation for lying. That is the story by Camilla Tomney, designed to smear Meghan by accusing her of making Kate cry around her wedding, instead of it being the other way round, and Kate making Meghan cry. And even then, Meghan did say that people should not feel that they can't like Kate if they support her. Other than this, and Harry simply saying that his relationship with his brother was... There were no direct attacks on William and Kate in the interview by the Sussexes. However, the point is that with this bombshell bullying allegation, Prince William and Kate Middleton seemed to put the Queen in an awful and difficult position as head of the institution and of having to make allegations against her much-loved grandson's wife, Duchess Meghan, who she was fond of. She was therefore unreasonably embroiled in a matter that had nothing to do with her household, but instead from the Welleses. And in any case, it was an allegation that many rationally minded people consider was dodgy as hell. So much so that the Queen, who paid privately for an investigation related to the allegations, ended up a year later releasing a statement that the outcome of the investigation would not be shared with the public. And even this led to her being criticised as well. So once again, the Queen looked bad. Like I said, almost two-faced. But also, she was just part of this beef against Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan that was essentially the Waleses. So, those are all the suspects I've put forward. All who I feel from the evidence used the Queen for their own agendas, but at her cost. If true, then one, some, or all of these suspects are people that the Queen should have been protected from at the time. Especially when it came to them doing their bidding, or them speaking negatively about her, like Angela Kelly, or when apparently they were speaking on her behalf, and in doing so, making her look really spiteful. Now, to be honest, Prince Harry could have been talking about anyone and everybody when it came to talking about the Queen and who she needed to be protected from. It could have been people that we haven't even got a clue about, or someone who I've not even mentioned, or it could just be a less specific comment, a flyaway comment perhaps, speaking in general terms, of a natural worry for an elderly relative. Who knows? Personally, I think it's all the suspects I've mentioned and more that we just don't know about. But Prince Harry knew exactly what he meant and who he was referring to in his statement. And to the snowflakes out there who are outsiders, he's an insider and he said what he said. The words that came out of his mouth, "I want to ensure that she has the right people around her," was not by any stretch of the imagination malicious. And anyone that has a problem with the grandson saying this about an elderly relative in an institution needs to dig deep and ask themselves why. That's all, my good people. What are your thoughts on who he might have been referring to, and also your thoughts on his relationship with the now late Queen? Drop a comment down below, and if you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and smash that notification bell so you know when the next video is out. And I hope to see you in the next video. But for now, peace and I'm out.